Senator Crapo.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I want to comment on a couple of things like process and a few aspects of the bill that I want to highlight, and then conclude discussing the policy issues that a number of my colleagues have already addressed. With regard to process, Madam Chairman, I want to congratulate you for having some bill language for us to evaluate, although we just barely got it. I just went through the process in the Finance Committee of having to actually go through an entire 2-week markup and vote on a bill that didn't exist. In fact, I'm not sure it ever did get fully drafted, because then it was redrafted as it was merged with the Help Committee bill, and that process was flawed. I appreciate the fact that we have bill language, and I would hope that as we move through the committee process or the hearing process here, that we will also take the time to get a thorough EPA analysis and to get a thorough CBO score before we would go to any kind of a markup, and let the American public as well as this committee have the opportunity to truly vet this legislation and understand what the exact wording in the bill means and does for us. Secondly, with regard to, I appreciate our witnesses being here today. I work with all of them and appreciate the relationship I have with them and look forward to hearing what they have to say. I do wish that the Secretary of Agriculture was here. In fact, Madam Chairman, I wish that the legislation gave the Secretary of Agriculture a greater role.
Senator, if you would yield without
Yes.
losing any time, we do have a statement. He's traveling in China, but he has a wonderful statement, which I will quote from later.
All right, good. I appreciate that. And actually, the legislation as it is now structured puts the EPA in charge of the offset programs for farmers and foresters, as I understand it. Is that not correct?
That's not correct. Again, not without losing his time. We leave it up. We say the White House will, it's a placeholder for the Ag Committee, which Chairman Leakin understands, and she's planning to fill it in. So as we have a placeholder for Finance, we have a placeholder for Ag, and in the bill it just says right now that the White House will determine who would be in charge of it.
All right, very good. And this just shows the importance of us being able to have the time to know what's in the bill and to vet it adequately. But I really do hope that when we get to that point and we get it finalized, that we have the Department of Agriculture in charge of managing the offsets in any bill that we might pass dealing with farmers and foresters. I want to move now to the policy issues that we're all discussing. I really don't believe there is a huge disagreement between us on the need for us to move forward and develop a very robust and meaningful national energy policy that will help us to dramatically remove our reduce our dependence on carbon-based forms of energy. I personally think that our country is far too dependent on petroleum as a form of energy. Not that we shouldn't recognize the need for petroleum and develop our own resources, because frankly we are also far too dependent on foreign sources of that energy, and as Senator Kerry indicated, that creates a threat not only to our national security in a defense context, it creates a threat to our economy, as we have most of our eggs in just one or two baskets, so to speak. And so I strongly support developing a national energy policy that will help us to become more diversified. I often analogize it to an investment portfolio, and very few people would invest all of their assets or resources in one place or just a couple places. And a diversified investment portfolio is clearly a better way to approach our energy policy, just like it would be in managing one's own financial circumstances. And because of that, I'm a very strong advocate for wind and solar and geothermal and nuclear, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, and a number of other kinds of energy. My point, though, is very similar to that made by Senator Alexander, and that is that as we move to a new, strong, robust energy policy in our country, we should do so in a way that does not devastate the economy. And I'm concerned that the provisions of this legislation would have the impact that many of my colleagues have already identified. We can do things like focus on conservation aggressively and find tremendous reductions of consumption just in the conservation arena. And in fact, every bit of energy that we conserve is the equivalent, in my opinion, to energy generated. Secondly, nuclear power, and I wish the bill did more for nuclear power. Reading from the text of the bill itself, which does have a nuclear section, it talks about how nuclear energy is the largest provider of clean, low-carbon electricity, almost 8 times larger than all renewable power production combined, excluding hydroelectric power. This is from the bill itself. I appreciate that. My problem is that we continue in different contexts to hear positive support with regard to nuclear, but the specific serious details that the committee needs to be getting into with regard to nuclear, in terms of the loan guarantee programs, the financial commitments to assist construction of new sites, the effort to address the incredible regulatory burdens and delays that are stopping us from being able to move forward aggressively. Those kinds of very robust energy policies in the nuclear context need to be put in the bill rather than just the findings about how important nuclear is. And so I appreciate the fact that the chairman has put this in the legislation, and I hope to work with her. I know we're already working with many members of the committee to address this issue and get a robust energy title.
Thank you very much.